Welcome to the Forank Marketing Podcast, where honest conversations, tested tactics, and no-nonsense marketing come together.
Hi everyone, I'm Zoe Ashbridge and I'm the SEO expert and one half of Forank, and I'm joined here today by co-founder of Forank and co-host Leigh Buttrey, who also does the pay-per-click. And today we've also got a special guest with us. That's Tom Pratt, who's the director at Albert Road Consulting. And Tom is an experienced charity and non-profit marketing strategist. So we're going to be talking all about impact marketing and marketing for non-profits and charities today, which is something like Leigh and I have touched on this a little bit, haven't we, Leigh? We've worked for charities before, but not to the scale that you have, Tom. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions and a lot of talking from you in this podcast today. Before we get into the podcast, Tom, we always do a little bit of an intro about what's going on in work and life. So I'll go to Leigh first. Tell us, Leigh, what's been going on personally and professionally for you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, really looking forward to this podcast, actually, Tom. It's something that I think us as marketers is a great learning curve. It's not very often that I've worked with charities and things, so I'm really excited to see some of the expertise you're bringing. But yeah, on the kind of work front has been really exciting recently. Myself and Zoe have just got a really awesome new client, which I think we're both buzzed about, to be honest. Really excited for that. So that's going really well. I think, again, it's just gone absolutely manic with work. It's either all or nothing, I'm sure of it. It tests my patience sometimes and my time management skills, put it that way. And yeah, and then casually, I have recently started squash. Which is such a random thing, but I was saying to Zoe the other day when we met up, I don't know, I just feel like I've got this when you're just naturally okay at something or good. I don't want to say I'm good at it because I'm probably really not, and I don't want to do a squash match with anyone, but I just feel like I'm naturally good at racket sports and I just love it, and it's just exciting, and just because I feel like I can hit a ball, I'm like, yeah, that's my new favorite thing at the moment, so hyper fixated on that.
Yeah, sounds good. We need to go and play some squash together. So I've not done that, and I really want to have a go.
I think once you get past the fact of the ball coming back at you at a very fast pace, then it's all right. Once you get hit once, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. It's a bit like paintballing, I think. Once you get hit once, you're fine.
Didn't like paintball. And is it a hard ball?
No, it's squidgy. It's not as hard as a tennis ball, but it's harder than I guess a shuttlecock.
Yeah. All right, that sounds all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, Leigh, all I can do, what's going on with me is echo what you've been saying, and that we've had a really good month, got such an exciting client, so excited about it, and they're local to us as well. So we work obviously internationally and stuff. So a lot of our meetings and stuff are on Zoom or Teams or whatever, but we're able to meet this client in person, which is really nice. And we just really like them. They're very like us, aren't they? They're straight talking. We just kind of get on with them. We think their product's cool. So yeah, all good stuff. But yeah, it has been a busy month. I am very tired. I'm very looking forward to just kind of getting to the end of August and handing over all the deliverables and knowing it's done, and then just taking a breath in September. And what about you, Tom? What's been going on personally and professionally?
Yeah, so I've had a busy month. I've got 2 kids, so that means kind of summer holidays. So it's quite a bit of juggle, but we've had some time away, and that's been great. Yeah, just really back to it. This week, it's very similar to you. It's great to hear you've kind of landed this really exciting client. I've had a kind of a long-term, kind of large involved project. It's coming to an end next month. So it's sad to see that, but it was always it was always planned, I believe.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I've got kind of 2 new projects which have started this week, which again, similar to you, I'm really excited about. There's one in particular where this organisation didn't really have a lot set up, and you can see, we can just see the massive opportunity that's there for them, that hopefully I can kind of get them started.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's just on your kind of, I used to play squash when I was really small, so yeah, I'm thinking maybe I could pick that up. I recently started doing kind of karate with my son.
Oh, wow.
So I feel that kind of squash fits for me in that kind of had a peak in the 80s, maybe like with karate and karate. So maybe it's having a bit of a comeback now as well. So it sounds like the perfect compliment.
It's funny actually because I've just signed up to like this is going to sound really posh and pretentious. It's called a country club. It's it's really not. But I just signed up there and like you have to obviously book the courts. Like no apparently no one else plays squash because you can go at any time of the day. It's never booked. There's 2 courts. So you know what? If I'm going to start a trend, squash it's going to be.
Well, we heard it here first.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. It sounds like everyone's had a really busy August and lots of exciting things in the pipeline. I can't believe we're heading into September, if I'm honest. It's like,
So crazy.
I just looking at like we started with one client in January and it's already September and they still feel so new and there's still so much to learn as well. So it's just, yeah, it's crazy. But I wanted to get into the podcast then and all about charities and non-profit and marketing and how we can help marketers on here, especially maybe people who work in-house with marketing teams or externally like yourself, Tom, and talk about some strategies and how we can help sort of impact that. But to get started, I had actually pulled out some interesting stats for charities and I'm keen to know your thoughts on these. So this was from the Association of Fundraising Professionals. So it says charities often lose 50 to 60% of newly acquired donors between their first and second donation, and about a 30% of donors year on year thereafter. Surprised?
No, I'm not really. I think and this is maybe something to talk a bit more about a bit later. I think a lot of people who make a donation to charities will just make a one-off donation and it will be based on some personal experience, quite often with that individual, whether they are kind of supporting a friend or family member, whether it's a particular appeal that's been run by the charity and it's a case of, they've just landed on the right person, the right place, the right time. And then I think, that there is always, like with any kind of organisation, so commercial organisations as well, you see that drop off from new customer to repeat customer. And there is that nurture phase that needs to happen that I think is quite often a gap and can fall between two different teams, or for the smaller organisations, they just don't necessarily have the resource to keep doing that and the focus is on the acquisition side of things. I think it's tough, but it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. No, it didn't actually surprise me. And I guess looking at this as, charities are businesses. So I guess looking at this as a business sort of aspect, it's kind of probably very similar in terms of businesses, but it's very interesting to think of like, I was just trying to think about the charities that I donate to. What is it that keeps me donating? And why do I keep donating? And I'll be honest, the probably the biggest thing for me is the ease of like a direct debit that it just comes out and I forget about it.
Yeah, that's absolutely key for kind of fundraising teams and marketing teams in charities. If they can get a new donor and if they can get a new donor on a kind of repeat direct debit, that's great because people are generally just going to forget about it. It's going to be absorbed into like monthly outgoings, and quite often it will be at such a level that it's kind of inconsequential to the bigger picture. That people are under a massive strain from a cost of living point of view, and we see the trends that really impacts on the levels of individual giving, and they're decreasing. And so it is really important for organisations to try, if they're looking for donors, to try and get what's that kind of repeat direct debit. And if they can't do that, how would they? What's the plan to keep people engaged and to keep the organisation relevant to that individual?
Yeah, interesting. Actually, while we're here, a general question: do we all donate to charity? Zoe, what do you?
Yeah, I have a monthly outgoing to a charity. What was like you said from personal experience that like triggered the donations. I lost a friend in the 20s from a cardiomyopathy. She had a heart problem. And the charity was really good they're quite small, but they're kind of like small enough to the founder of that charity picked up the phone and spoke to her mum and stuff, but big enough that they can serve like the nation. They like screen hearts and stuff like that. So yeah, I donate to them a monthly donation for quite some time now. So yeah, I do. What about you guys?
Yeah, I do as well. There's a few different charities that I donate to, again, just based on kind of my own personal experience. And I'd had answer when I first set my business, and I got a load of help from Macmillan. And so, as far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer just for me to keep supporting them. And they made such a big impact in terms of the clear information that they could give me at the time. So yeah, that's why I do it.
And likewise, on a personal aspect, mine is for blood donors. Having had a blood transfusion myself, and then not, unfortunately, unable to give a blood transfusion, that is the one way I can help support those. So very interesting. We've all got like very personal things, and that touches back on what you said, Tom, is that charity is a very personal thing, which is why I think marketing potentially can be a little bit difficult. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think what people are always trying to balance in this when they're marketing to people is, there's very real need to get the funds in to continue the work that the charity or the non-profit's doing, whatever that is. But there is so many different organizations out there, and realistically you can't kind of describe any one cause as kind of better than the other in the way that you would, that you typically stack competitors in the commercial sector. And so there is this really tough job that marketers and fundraisers in this sector have to do just to make themselves relevant. And it's appealing to that kind of emotional side of things to encourage people to take action, and whether that's to make a donation, I guess more practical in the first instance is just to kind of bring people into your universe and not to kind of stray too far into kind of marketing jargon. But if you can get them on a mailing list or following you on the socials, or actually committing to attend an event, depending on what you're trying to achieve as a charity, that often be a more practical first step than just getting a donation straight away. And again, just draw parallels to the commercial sector. I'm sure you've got clients who, in initial conversations, the folks will be around sales, and there is the whole kind of funnel and journey that leads up to that. And it's no different really in the charity non-profit sector, in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. In that, I think sometimes maybe marketers potentially could lose sight of that charities are kind of, they still are a business model, and they still have that kind of funnel, but you need to sort of nurture people into it. But yeah, getting back then, so I guess this podcast really is a search term, well, a term that I came across when I was doing some research for the podcast, Tom, specifically, and it was impact marketing. Now, impact marketing is a term that I guess I have heard before, but not in the sense for charities. So for listeners who are listening, impact marketing is essentially marketing that inspires action, proves its results, and aligns message with a mission-driven outcome. So it very much aligns with charities and non-profit here. And Tom, is that, what else can you add to sort of impact marketing? Are we on the right lines with calling it that? Is it just some jargon I've just pulled out of thin air?
Well, I guess it's not. And with kind of all of these phases. So my background is marketing generally, and then for years to describe myself as a digital marketer. And so, my personal opinion on all of this is that the impact marketing just helps people understand what your intentions or kind of what set of tools you're using with the activity that you're doing. I think all marketing for me comes back to kind of human nature, human behavior, and the marketing is that clearly communicate a message, and the message that that you're trying to get across as an organization. The purpose behind that is always to incite an action in somebody who doesn't necessarily know anything about. So yeah, I'd say kind of that's maybe me kind of hedging my answer around that, Leigh. So impact marketing, I think it's a fair term, and as long as when we use it, people understand, what it is that we're talking about. It is just the focus is on impact rather than that kind of commercial focus that generally gets looked with sales and marketing.
I love what you said there, Tom, about it goes back to humans and just being marketing to people. It's something that I know Zoe always says this, with SEO, that you're writing for people, you're not writing for Google, and I think it's so important. And Zoe, do you want to add anything to that?
No, not. I think that is just correct, isn't it? Okay, it's you have to be thinking about who we're writing to and what action we want to elicit from the piece of content, and how do we need to kind of hit those other commercial triggers, I guess, so that they do take the next step, whatever that next step is, whatever that call to action is.
Yeah, and I think that now, so you've probably been asked this question loads, with AI just being this new thing, and now everyone's no, you're not optimizing for AI. Well, it's for me that the same things still apply, the large language models and ChatGPTs, whatever. They need to get the information from somewhere, and are you just going to kind of throw up some content or change your site or kind of change some information just to get yourself kind of a small fraction of that noise, or are you going to continue doing something that's genuine to an organization that's going to elicit an action from somebody in the real world? And for me, it's been no different over the last few years. When I can't remember the thing before AI that was going to kill SEO, but
TikTok.
That was it, yeah. TikTok, social, mobile, voice assistants.
Voice assistants that never killed SEO, did it?
And it's just it's just a different way that people are getting their information. So, yeah, I think for me, I always try and bring it back to the people, and if you're the organizations that I work with are normally trying to either raise awareness, raise funds, or encourage volunteering. So it's normally one of those three things, or all of those three things that we're trying to do. So each one of those, you need to communicate clearly so you can lower the perceived risk of people getting involved with you. That for me is kind of the key thing that applies across the board.
Yeah, really good input there. I just think it is so honest, and I think myself and Zoe have this kind of mantra of this honesty, this being really frank, for without sort of name dropping the agency in here, but just being that honest. I suppose that's so much more prevalent with charities, and that honesty, and how do you ensure that you are coming across as honest, and just being that really transparent. I suppose there's no hiding behind anything with charities and non-profits. So how do you ensure that translates with marketing? Because I think sometimes marketing, especially online, is that people can sort of read things a little bit differently than you maybe intended and things. So how do you ensure that kind of complete transparency online with marketing?
Well, I think you've just got to be really clear about who the audience that you're talking to, and the problem that you're solving for them. The website and any kind of marketing that you do around that should be the bridge between that particular audience and your organization. And so, yeah, it just really comes back to that. And I think it's really interesting what you're saying there. There's data from the Charity Aid Foundation, just around kind of the donation patterns and reasons for not donating, apart from I think about 44%, 45% of people in their survey, they just can't afford it. But once you take that huge group out, the top reasons were lack of trust and lack of interest. And for me, those two things are really kind of key points, because that's, as a kind of marketer, that's something that we can tackle and do, those problems that we can work to solve. and lack of trust was, I think it was mainly from an older demographic, and lack of interest or relevance was mainly skewing towards a younger demographic. So that was just an example of, being clear about your audience to be able to tailor the messages so you can really solve that problem.
That is such an interesting point, actually, and it's something that I'm adamant about. Like, you can't, when you are doing marketing and the messaging you're putting out there, it has to kind of solve that problem for the user. Otherwise, it's kind of a bit pointless otherwise. I say solve that problem, but you have to understand their kind of pain points. And I guess one of the things that I do when we've got a new client is like, we want to get involved with the sales team, because the sales team are the ones, so and well, the ones dealing with the customers, so they'll obviously ask for what the pain point, what are the common questions that are coming out. Is it a price issue? Is it a quality issue? What are these things coming out? So I guess in a similar vein then, Tom, I guess you would, like, how do you find that information for charities if we've got, especially potentially smaller charities and non-profits that potentially have an issue that they're not quite aware of? How would they go about finding what that sort of core maybe pain point is for why people don't donate?
Yeah, so it's pretty much exactly what you've just described. So you find the equivalent of the sales team, so either like a project delivery team, or kind of some of the operational team maybe who are experiencing kind of first-hand feedback from either the people that they organize the charities benefiting. So for example, working with an organization to increase the number of volunteers. So volunteering is something which I think you can have, like, this could be a whole other podcast, so I'll try and find the best too long. But I think that everybody should kind of volunteer somewhere, and because the benefits to an individual are just massive. So if you're not interested in doing anything from an altruistic point of view, you just want to kind of prove yourself, get some good experiences, like, absolutely look into volunteering. However, loads of people don't volunteer, and there's loads of barriers there. But at the same time, lots of people want to do it. So this kind of thing just blow your mind. So what is that kind of problem that's in the middle there? So for the organisation that I was working with, the key thing there is to understand the kind of people are reluctant to take that first step because they are worried that they're going to be tied into like massive commitments, and they weren't really clear on what volunteering looked like this organisation. And so what we're able to do is look at lots of different like testimonials from volunteers, different types of content, like running taster sessions where we're looking for new trustees. We run open evenings and people could come to other events as well. We found that really helps the uptake of that. So you need, like, the onus is on, I guess, the individual organisation. This is what makes it really hard at the same time, but the onus is on them, to show other people, like the people that are already involved in kind of having a good time, or supporting the organisation in a certain way, show their experiences to attract more people like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't go over the other kind of stat that I had in here, but I guess it's kind of relevant to some extent. It's like, if that was to be portrayed as like video marketing potentially, there is a stat here that says for every £1 spent on video marketing, non-profits can seek approximately a £7 return in value, which is kind of huge. And I think it just shows that video is massive here. So if you could, as a charity, and you were looking for volunteers, take on some of that information, that potentially video might be the way forward.
Yeah, and I think that would be absolutely huge. And again, it is for organisations, if a lot of organisations are kind of time and resource poor, and so how do you enable them to get this video content, and what kind of level of content then counts as good enough? Just thinking about my own efforts to produce video content for my own business, I've incredibly awkward trying to video myself and just overcome some of these things. So I absolutely feel people's pain in this. and at the same time, there's a stat around kind of volunteering, which shows that kind of volunteering could add like £32.5 billion to the economy in terms of increased productivity, and that's just by engaging people who work for kind of commercial organisations and having them go and volunteer at charities. So there is absolutely something which can be solved there, but it is just making that available, and it's all about I guess lowering barriers for people to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I can see. Even when you were talking, I was just in myself thinking, I've always wanted to volunteer. Why haven't I done it? And I think it comes down to, I suppose, not understanding fully what volunteering is. And I'm not talking that, oh, that's a very blanket cover, but I know Zoe is volunteering. Is that right to say, Zoe?
Yeah, volunteering now. I've done a few volunteer roles over the years, dipping and out depending on where I am in my life and like what spare time I've got and stuff. But I do think volunteering is important. I kind of feel like everyone should do something, volunteer actually.
Yeah, and I think it's that there is maybe that I guess image of it being what one-sided, as it, if I was to volunteer, like it's just me giving it, and that's like zero sum, and the actual experience is far from that. But I think there's still quite a lot of work to change that perception. And also, people have got busy lives, people are under massive financial pressure, and it feels kind of privileged to say, oh, people should be volunteering. And it is that, I guess it is that kind of emotional versus logical thing that we're talking about. Also, the stats say that anybody who does volunteer will benefit from it. But really, if you're struggling to pay the bills, if you're holding down a job and trying to kind of hold your family together, it's going to be the last thing on your mind.
That's very true. You need to have the kind of space to be able to give, don't you?
Yeah.
But let's get back into kind of this impact marketing. I did write down on our agenda some favourite and memorable campaigns that have kind of stuck out, and it goes very much into potentially emotional things that we spoke about, or personal. But Tom, do you have like a favourite campaign that's always stuck in your mind? Like I've probably got two over the years, but do you have anything that really sticks in your mind?
So my first one's kind of a bit random, but it's Live Aid. So I'd be 7,
Yeah.
and it probably my first conscious experience of like the charity events. Maybe it's kind of a bit bigger than a campaign.
Huge.
I was a 7-year-old, big, massive David Bowie fan, and he was kind of singing there, and that's I can remember that and thinking, oh wow, like really, you could be there. These people are doing that, and it's to support this kind of, this cause, and that's something which has stuck with me.
You know what's so interesting about Live Aid actually? So I wasn't unfortunately wasn't around when Live Aid #1 came around, but I do remember when we were at senior school and they did like a revival of it. So there was a few. They really basically re-released the song, I think, and there was the more up to date, I guess, celebrities or whatever on the call. I can't quite remember who was in it now. But what was kind of interesting is like then it's kind of it's kind of like this generational thing now, because then it got everyone really talking about the original one. So then you had kind of two new generations. I was amazed that like, oh, some of my favorite celebrities were now singing in this song and artists, but then it got a talking point to my parents and then their parents, and it became this kind of generational thing. And I think now everyone who was ever listened to, who doesn't live under a rock knows the song, and that's because of the generation, and that's how much of an impact that Live Aid has had just from that one concert.
Yeah, and I think it's that kind of key cultural moment, and that's what really stuck with me. I guess more recently, and this goes back to like the storytelling and the power behind that, and talking about storytelling in marketing is a bit of a trope and a bit cheesy, but it is really powerful. And I think that charities and non-profits, it's one kind of key thing that all of them have, and if they can find an effective way to tell a story, it really works. But the mental health advert that Norwich Football Club did, I think it was It wasn't last year, I think it was the year before. It was a film of a guy, some guys turning up and sitting next to each other.
Yes, I've seen it. I remember this now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about mental health and suicide prevention, and the impact of that is really powerful, and that for me is like prime example of how we can use kind of video, like you were talking about, just to communicate a message, and that has stuck with me.
Yeah, Tom, that's just giving me goosebumps now, just remembering it. Now you've triggered it. And Zoe, do you remember the campaign, Zoe? Okay, I'll explain, but for you and the listeners here. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you go into there's two guys sat next to each other at a football match, and one of them stereotypically looks depressed, if I'm not mistaken, and one of them is really bubbly and out there. And then at the end, it's actually flipped it on its head. It turns out that the gentleman who was the really lively and bubbly one was the one with mental health issues. And I guess the point being is that not mental health doesn't show. And it was really impactful, massively. And I think actually just even the demographic used with men in it was really impactful as well.
Yeah, and for me that's a really good recent example, because you can take that and you can then apply it to all of the channels that we deal with from a digital marketing point of view and a digital communication point of view. You can talk about reach and engagement and impact that had, and it ticks all of those boxes.
Yeah, and I think it gets people thinking. I think there's an educational piece, especially with this particular campaign, with men and suicide prevention for men. I think it just makes you a little bit more conscious. It might not be that you've done anything with it and you haven't potentially, gone on to potentially say anything to anybody. It just makes you a little bit more aware of just check in with your friend,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that impact that it does have. I think for me as well, like just looking at, I don't even know if this is a charity actually, but it sticks out in my mind. There's two. It's the FAST one. It's for the stroke awareness. Do you remember that advert?
Yeah.
And FAST, which is face, arm, speech, and time. I don't know if it's necessarily a charity, but it's stuck in my head. I probably saw that advert when I was about 10, and it's still there. Now I would know what to do now. I'm like, oh, it's FAST. Like that's what you would do. But again, I think it's. I think why these are so impactful is that they really get you. They make it more memorable. It's not really hugely long-winded. It's relatable as well. And I think this is the crux of sort of really good marketing campaigns for charities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing with both of those that we've spoken about is that in this age where people's attention spans are declining and there's so much demand, and people are kind of doom scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or whatever, these things will need to stop people in their tracks and really grab that attention. And with the Norwich City campaign, that kind of just jumped out of being a standard campaign, became part of the national conversation for a bit, and really raised awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a kind of a question, I guess. Moving, like you mentioned, with this kind of short attention spans, and I'm talking a lot of things that we've spoke about as either been like TV adverts, especially like growing up. And I guess there is a huge demographic of people now who obviously don't really watch TV. I know they're probably more streamers. They're on YouTube, TikTok, and other streaming platforms. Has that had like an impact in sort of non-profits? Because I guess maybe I was speaking wrongly, but like I feel like TV was kind of an easy way to sort of blanket coverage a location. Do you find it's impacted like where marketing channels are, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I think the impact on it is, and they specifically, so the areas I generally deal with are helping people with their ad grants or helping people on kind of their content, the strategy, and the SEO side of things. And what we've found with that is that you need to it just goes back to the basics, and they become even more important of presenting, the presenting the information or presenting the message in a way that is really easy for people to understand. It will land on the page, just make it super obvious that they are in the right place and that you can answer their question, and then provide kind of clear next steps, signposts to other things. going back to what we're talking about right at the start of this conversation about, only the drop off between the first donation and a repeat donation. Well, this is, I guess, this one of the key challenges. If people are searching to educate themselves about, say, a health condition for some of the organisations I work with, or a particular issue, whatever it is that the charity deals with, that first impression is really important because of, all of the diversity of different channels people can use to either get their entertainment, get their information.
I think this then leads me on to my next thing, is kind of why, I guess, measuring campaigns or anything that you're doing really online, this doesn't just fall with charities and non-profits, but why measuring and tracking online is probably so important, because you have got one, understanding that kind of repeat donation, but there is other things, sort of like the volunteer signups, would you even go about kind of tracking that, for instance, and proving like that the campaign has been successful?
I guess there's a few things, you've got to be really clear about what the objective is at the start of the campaign. And also, if you're just running, say, a specific campaign for something, just have an objective for that campaign that maybe supports a wider objective for the organisation as a whole. And I think there's maybe a risk to try and have like all activity tick all boxes as far as objectives go. And then, yeah, absolutely, you need to make sure that your analytics, tags, everything like that's all set up, it's all working properly. But you also need to have a robust way to measure the outcomes in the real world as well, of people that are offline. So are you driving people to an event? If that's the case, did enough people turn up at this event? What was the feedback like for the right sort of people? So we got like an audience match, or are you just driving large amounts of traffic? Similarly for, the kind of the fundraising landscape's changed a lot, especially since COVID. We've seen, changing trends in people, like essentially people who sponsor other people for events, even through to big reduction in the number of kind of grants and trusts that are available. So all of this means that these things are just becoming harder, and there's quite a lot of stuff which you can't measure, or which will happen months or maybe years down the line. Like something recently, so this is a report we're working on at the moment. We're looking at change in fundraising trends, and there's been a reduction in individual giving. There's also an increase in the amount of funds being left via legacies. Remember my stat, I think it's 64% of people who donate via the will haven't told their charity of their intention to donate.
Wow.
So if you flip that stat on its head, as a marketer sat within, or a fundraiser sat within the charity's in-house team, like 2/3 of the people who are going to leave you a legacy, you don't know anything about. And so then, like, what activity are you doing?
Yeah.
To keep that going. So as somebody who's works in digital for years, like analytics has been my friend, and it's one of the things that I love about it's SEO, email marketing back in the day when you used to do some of that, is you can do something, you can make a change on a website, you can send out a campaign, you can see immediately how many people are clicking on it, how many people are dropping off, and you can amend based on this information. And I just think that with a lot of these trends that are happening, the time to realize this is a lot longer, especially with legacies. People can make wills in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they're not going to change them, or they're unlikely to change them. So I think it is really interesting, and that's why organizations need to strike a balance between being able to measure everything, measure impact to a level that they are happy that they're doing the right thing, and also have some faith that they are communicating in a consistent way without necessarily being able to measure it up right down to like a return on advertising spend, what we're comfortable with from a commercial point.
Jeez, that takes attribution to another level. Like,
Yeah, it does. It does.
when
Yeah.
I was 30, I decided to do this, and 40
Yeah.
years later, then the money's coming in. Oh, geez. I guess, yeah, that's mind blown actually. Just Zoe, I think just wanted to ask you a question, I guess, then talking of other ways, I guess, to track, or at least if you're running a campaign that potentially isn't maybe focused on donations, maybe it is volunteering. Is there ways that you could also measure like uptick with traffic or branded search terms or whatever? Is there any guidance there that you could give us?
I'll have a think on that one because so if you were like a campaign to like get volunteers, I suppose I'd be looking at things like how the calls to action for the volunteers, because like the brand search could be anything. I suppose you could filter out your keywords by potential, like things like volunteer role or the name of your volunteer role. That might help. Then I would probably go, I think, to get an accurate picture of perhaps the action the volunteers being asked to take once they find the website or something. So like whether they're submitting contact forms or on that particular page. If I oversimplify that, Tom, have we missed anything, do you think?
No, not at all. And I think, yeah, I don't think it needs to be more complicated than that. And I think that what I've found is that people typically will search for kind of like brand name plus volunteer role, or volunteering plus location,
Yeah.
kind of category type.
Yeah, I was going to say that's how I found my volunteer role. Is when someone told me to do this, they were like, think about the demographic that you want to help. Because I was like, I wanted to volunteer, didn't know what to do, so I did just go and search like my location and that demographic volunteer roles, and I found a volunteer role for me, and I never would have really found it. I wouldn't have known it existed without that search. So I suppose that's what a way to do it with SEO though, is to cover that search term, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think quite often, especially for the thousands of small to medium charities that are out there that don't necessarily have the brand recognition beyond a small group of kind of consistent supporters or trustees and staff for the help. That's a really good way of getting additional support.
Yeah.
Bringing that in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. It's, I guess, talking of marketing online, and given that I don't even know the stat anymore, it's probably increased, but that like 96% of people do their research online or whatever it may be. Like that just shows like the importance of making sure that your website and your content on there is relatable to the person that you want to find you. Just outside of advertising and PPC and all of that, it's just I guess the bare bones need to just be ensure that they're correct and that you are getting that message out there of who you want to resonate with.
Yeah. And yeah, just going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's with that, like Zoe was saying, you've measured the impact of that, of how many people are then and landing on your volunteering page and they're contacting the organisation or filling in the form. And the bits where kind of analytics is really useful is looking at that engagement on that page, and if you can bring in, does the conversion change if you've got a video of a volunteer on their first day volunteering describing their experience, for example.
Yeah, that's really important. Really good idea actually. Moving on then, Tom, for planning for maximum, like if you were a charity listening to this right now, or someone who works within a charity space, how would you go about planning a successful campaign, making sure that you've probably got, like, you're touching a lot of different channels. We've got obviously SEO, we've got pay-per-click. Here, there could be other channels that we haven't even thought of, maybe leafleting or sort of in person. So how would you, if you were to run a campaign for a client, how would you kind of go about sort of one, setting that up, but also like planning for like that maximum impact, if you like? So right from campaign idea through to end goal.
Okay, so what we generally start with is kind of research into the objectives of what an organization wants to achieve. We don't want them to kind of get to the end of the campaign and just feel like, know that some marketing's gone on, but not be able to draw a direct line back to the impact that it's had. So think about the objectives, and then in amongst that, it's it comes to, you know, what do you want people to do? What's the action you want people to take? And then kind of flip that around. So what problem are you really solving for people? And what audience are you speaking to? And if it's a kind of a general campaign, you're going to have different messages probably for different audience groups. So we take that into account. And then depending on the demographic, that kind of dictates the channels. And so quite often people would talk to me about something, and like paid social is probably more impactful than kind of trying to get something through Google Ad grants, for example. So, you know, we will direct people that way. And so, you know, if you've got your objective, you've got your audience, so you can develop your messaging around that. And it is about trying to elicit that emotional reaction in people that gives them a nudge onto the landing page on the site or wherever it is you're directing people to. And then, you know, continue the consistency of that messaging that's on the initial point of contact. And it is also about thinking about how can you hit people with the same message from a number of different channels or different mediums as well. So that repetition builds up like recognition in people and familiarity, which increases the chance that people are going to take action there as well. And then, you know, you've maybe got the main objective, whether it's kind of increasing the amount of supporters through donations, but also I would encourage people to have a look at, you know, what would be a secondary objective behind that. Can you add people to a mailing list, for example, get more supporters on the social media side of things? Just because going back to the previous stat around kind of legacy giving, you know, people are going to know about you. So any campaign that you do that raises awareness, if you can, you know, one of the charities I was involved in, they'd received a huge legacy gift, and all they could find is this individual had been receiving their physical quarterly newsletter for the last 10 years.
Wow.
And that's the key thing, is the consistency in the communication with supporters. So for me, every campaign you run has to have really clearly defined goals, and that can be around raising a certain amount of funds, but also don't underestimate the power of just raising awareness of your organization and bringing people onto your kind of mailing lists, whether that's email, physical, like social, because then as long as you've got a plan in place to keep communicating with them, you know, that is going to pay off as people become familiar and they can see that, you know, drawing it like some equivalence between something that's intangible, like an amount of money, versus what does this actually mean?
Yeah.
You know, what do we translate this into? And so that's something else that I encourage the organisations I work with to think about. So for somebody donates £10, what does that then fund?
Does that translate to? Yeah. That's right. I can't remember the charity that did that. It might have been Oxfam, maybe. It's like donate £5, it can get like a mosquito net or something. Or it's very much similar to that potentially.
It is. And now you see like a rise of like kind of crowdfunders and, you know, Big Give, where anything you donate is typically doubled. There's a lot of organisations that are using these techniques more and more. You know, it just focuses people's attention.
Yeah, I saw a good one the other day, actually. That's just like triggered a memory. It's only like a small local charity, but they did this like 50p Friday. So they're just asking for 50p. But as soon as you click to donate 50p, like you're probably going to put in like £1 or like £5. Like not many, like once you've got people to that, you like broke down the first barrier of getting them to get their card out to do the 50p, you're probably going to be able to get a bit more. I mean, they made loads that day because they really pushed for it, and they did the same thing where they said like we needed the cars, and there was like veterinary bills, I think it was, and they told you how much it was, and it was really successful actually.
It is actually really interesting. I feel like that's a lot of it, isn't it? If you've got someone, especially with charities, is because you are asking them for a donation with nothing in return, which is a challenge in itself, isn't it? But getting them online to a page, I feel like you're kind of halfway there. It's like, what is the next kind of step? You're probably, and this is what differs with maybe even on a commercial aspect, like, you know, getting someone to the website. Yeah, they might sort of sign up or give us a lead or whatever. But I feel like with charities, if you do get someone to be able to just go out of their way, you're probably 90% there with the donation. That's my thought process. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it's totally wrong. And I think that is, a lot of effort is put into, getting people, you wrench people away from kind of doom scrolling, and you've got them on your site or on your socials or whatever. And it's just that constant thing of, communicating how people, in the format people want to be communicated to, and can you just plant a seed that stays with people, and so you build that recognition with them.
I had two things to ask you actually, Tom. I'm going to skip over the kind of general Q&A because I think we've actually I feel like I've just quizzed you the whole way through. But I had two things. So I signed up for a charity called Hope House, which is a children's charity. I think it's national, but it's very local to where I am. And they signed up, someone knocked on my door, right? And I'm totally against this. I really dislike it when people invade my space, right? But the guy who I knocked on the door, he was like, "Look, I know you don't like me here." And he was such a great guy. He was like, "I know you don't like me here." He goes, "Unfortunately, I've got to do," he mentioned something that he had to meet some quota or whatever. He probably fed me a load of BS. But that's when he sat down and he sort of said, "I've got all of this leaflets and things I could give you." He goes, "Basically, all we're asking for is you to do a monthly direct debit, and it goes into this Hope House lottery. So once a month, I think someone wins £1,000 or whatever." And it wasn't, I guess, that for me, it wasn't the lottery that I was doing. I think it was actually him. And I don't know if he was probably giving me a load of BS. But I'd like to think I'm pretty sharp on knowing what it was. But it was just the complete honesty that he did. I guess I can't remember what the question I was going with now. I guess this probably leads into, is there like a right or wrong way to market, I suppose? Because for me, that feels so invasive and door-to-door knocking. But it obviously worked on me, so it must work. Otherwise, it wouldn't keep doing it, right?
Yeah, that's right. To answer your question generally, if a marketing campaign doesn't ring true with the charity's kind of values and overall message, then it's going to run the risk of impacting their reputation. That is going to outweigh any short-term kind of commercial benefit they get from the funds they raise. I think, kind of charity door knockers, nobody enjoys a visit from them. And, a lot of respect to the people that do that job. I did a telesales job. It's one of my first jobs.
It's cruel.
It's rough. It's going to be brutal. You're going to get the door slammed in your face a lot. But that, that kind of script, they've just got to get through enough no's to get to people such as yourself, where they've just spoken to you at the right time with the right message. But that's not particularly targeted. That's just like a volume thing, and the guys that do that, they'll work through a script that will kind of walk that line between annoying too many people.
Did I get fed BS? Did I fall for it?
I wouldn't say so. I think it would probably have to, they would definitely, they would be able to kind of mislead you or anything like that. But, you talk about behavioral marketing and,
yeah,
we like to think we're fairly complex humans, but we're not. We're kind of fairly basic.
Pretty, yeah.
So when people knock on your door, they will tell you that it's for a good cause. They will like trigger your empathy in the cause. They will say that they've already had a really good support from people down your street or people in the area. They're just bowled over by how friendly everybody's being. And what they're trying to do is just elicit this thing of, well, you want to be all of those things, so you're not going to go against it.
Yeah.
Or you're less likely to go against it.
To be fair to him, he did. I have a son, and he did. It was like on the weekend or something. They knew exactly what they were doing, because that's pulled my heartstrings. Because if anyone who doesn't know who Hope House is, it's a charity for terminally ill children, and that literally pulled on my strings, because he was like, "I can see you've got a son. It's only £3 a month or something," and I was just like, you know what? Yeah.
I mean, you're not a monster, are you? Like, how you're not going to say no to that with your own son stood there.
Yeah.
So that's it. But I mean, if you having said all of this, and those are all kind of all of your buttons that they get pushed as like a genuine decent human stood there being asked to support a good charity. You can't, if it didn't align with your own values, you would just say no to it. So that I don't think there is, in terms of organizations using kind of marketing, running kind of marketing campaigns, the main guidelines for me are: you making any kind of crazy claims that are completely at odds with who you are as an organization. You see, I haven't seen it for a wee while, but kind of 6-7 months ago, these organizations just filling their campaigns with AI generated imagery when they've got their own kind of genuine imagery that they could be using, and that people called out for that. I think there's maybe a bit of the trend of it at the time, but if they'd gone back to their values, they would have realized that that's something that didn't sit with their own values. So that would have got left at the planning stage rather than making it into a live campaign. So yeah, I think we'd talk to people about that in our kind of planning process, and depending on the channel and who they want to communicate with.
Amazing. I think this kind of leads me on to my next question, and then we can kind of maybe wrap up this episode. But you mentioned about legacy before. You've mentioned all these different kind of marketing tactics. Is there like a right or wrong way? If we go back to that statistic at the start where we talk about that there is a huge drop off for the first to second donation, is there a way? Do you like map out supporters' journeys dependent on like sort of could it come down to age, the type of marketing that they're interested in? Like, is that one thing that you do, is map out that kind of supporter's journey to ensure we retain them, basically? Are they different?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the campaigns that we've done recently are around more of the acquisition, and what we do there is use that demographic information that's available via all of the different channels that we use to say to ask that question. Does this look like the type of people who you're looking to communicate with, you're looking to attract? I think the key thing, once you get people to either make that first donation or that first point of contact, is consistency, to consistently communicate with them and to let people know that the work you're doing, or kind of the latest stories from people that you've helped. That for me is the key thing, and it's hard work for the teams who work in the charities to do.
Yeah, I do wonder if people are worried about retention, is like actually I'd probably physically like map it out of like what that journey looks like, and maybe use someone that has been a long-standing supporter, and like where those maybe key touch points are for them, and when they're more likely to donate if they're not already potentially on a direct debit, for instance, or it could be anything. I just wonder if that maybe could be some correlation to then try and build up that retention, and seeing if you can map it out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can do it. I think that is a piece of work that people do, and I think also it comes back to that point about effort versus reward. So you can go so far down trying to get like the perfect data set or the perfect journey, but like that perfect doesn't necessarily exist. So you need to be happy with what level is good enough, and you need to be confident in your own kind of organization's tone of voice and way of communicating, and use the data that you do have to check that this is kind of still getting through, people are reading your newsletter, that you're communicating with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. Zoe, have you got anything else to add on to that?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it pretty comprehensively in this hour or so.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Tom, for all of your insights. I have definitely learned a lot. I'm actually kind of shocked at that statistic about legacy. That's really, really shocked me, to be honest. And I think that's so important. Like, and if any charity listening today could even like go and find that information, or even look at a campaign to even make sure people are checking, perhaps. I don't know where that could be, but there's definitely something to be done with that statistic.
Yeah, so I think that was the Charities Aid Foundation where a lot of that information came from the research that we were doing. If people want to to find out more about.
Amazing. Well, I will get that statistic and link it down below as well with anything else that we've talked about. We'll put this in the podcast notes as well. So just to recap then, impact marketing is about change as well. It's not just about awareness. And if we think about all of the examples that we've said, the generational sort of impact, or even the huge impact with the Norwich football team. Was it Norwich, if I said that right? Norwich football team?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. That storytelling and transparency, I suppose, is just so important for charities, and to drive that trust and action. As Tom said before, trust is kind of one of the bigger things that is a barrier for charities, especially when he mentioned with Age UK there. And then understanding your audience is key to achieving really great campaigns, really, and making sure that your audience, your campaigns resonate, that it speaks to them. And even with smaller budgets, you can achieve big results with proper planning and smart planning. So, Tom, is there anything else you want to add to recap any points?
No, I think that was a really good recap. I guess the key things for me are to, acknowledge it is really hard work for charities and non-profits out there. There's a lot of noise and there's a lot of competition, but you focus on, effectively telling your story and think about not just kind of showing people what you do, but eliciting that emotional impact from people. I found that leads to kind of really effective results.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking your time out to do this. Look forward to keeping an eye out on LinkedIn to see what you're coming up with and running as well. So if you want to speak to Tom for any advice with charities, non-profit marketing, please reach out to Tom on LinkedIn. His details will be in the podcast notes at the bottom and also on YouTube. But also feel free to find him on LinkedIn yourself. And then next episode, we're going to be talking about marketing tests, success and failures, and exploring what has worked, what didn't, and all the lessons learned. So if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Forank Marketing, follow us on LinkedIn, and share your most impactful charity marketing stories with us there. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you for listening to the Forank Marketing Podcast. We'll be releasing a new episode every month, so don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.